over 50 degrees in the shade. What is unimaginable for us is reality every day in the hottest place in the world, in Death Valley. Nowhere else is it as hot as it is in this valley in the USA. And even though it is unimaginable, some people have actually chosen Death Valley as their home. In this video, we show you how they live despite this absolutely hostile heat, how their everyday life differs from ours, and why, of all places, there is one of the sickest luxury hotels in the USA, as well as probably the toughest sports competition ever. It's going to be hot, so stay tuned here at Wonderlane. Before we get to the typical day in Death Valley, we want to briefly clarify a few facts and show you what Death Valley actually is. Death Valley is a 13,000 square meter valley in the Mojave Desert between California and Nevada, and it has some very interesting features. It is 86 meters below sea level, and thus deeper than any other place in the USA. This depth is accordingly also the reason why the highest temperatures ever measured, 56 degrees in the shade, was recorded here of all places. Death Valley is surrounded by mountains, which ensure that all clouds dissolve kilometers away, and therefore do not even reach the valley. In addition, all winds are diverted by the mountains, so that means the air in the valley is literally dammed up and almost never gets moving. As a result, it is so dry in Death Valley that no plants grow here at all that could cool the air down a bit. This also leads to the fact that it is hotter there than anywhere else. Despite the enormous heat and hostile environment, thousands of tourists now come to the valley every year to find out what it's like to stand around in the sun at over 50 degrees. But since it would be too dangerous to leave these tourists on their own, and a few careless ones have already died from heat stroke, the reserve employs a few dozen rangers. And it is exactly these rangers and some crazy heat lovers who have decided to voluntarily live in Death Valley, turning not only their usual daily rhythms, but also their entire lives upside down. For the approximately 100 to 300 inhabitants of Death Valley, a normal workday looks very different from ours. Instead of getting up in the morning and going to work or school as usual, a family in Death Valley has to use the few hours after sunrise to at least get some fresh air, because it gets so unbearably hot after 8 a.m. All family activities, such as going to the playground or taking a walk, take place at 7 o'clock in the morning. At this time, temperatures in the valley are comparatively mild, around 38 degrees, making outdoor activities just about bearable. In order not to suffer too much from the heat, the inhabitants of Death Valley have come up with some tricks that seem rather strange at first glance, so it is almost clear that they constantly run around with sunscreen and hats. But it is much more difficult to find a place in the shade. As already mentioned, there are hardly any plants growing in Death Valley, and there are only a few trees, so this search is very difficult. Many inhabitants of the valley say that they now unconsciously walk in the direction of the shade and try to avoid the sun as if by instincts. In addition to the search for shade, the residents have also adapted their entire diet to the temperatures in Death Valley. That is, instead of eating breakfast normally, the children take small snacks in the form of ice cubes in the morning to cool their bodies from the inside. The adults even start drinking the first of a total of 7 liters of water, since in Death Valley, one can collapse within a very short time and even die from the heat. This is often extremely difficult as there is no cold water in the water pipes of the houses, since even all underground infrastructure and accordingly the water pipes are extremely heated. The residents can enjoy lukewarm water at most. At 8 o'clock, all the families of the Rangers are back at home and go about their daily lives. Since the nearest city, Las Vegas, is 45 minutes away by helicopter and such a distance by car is extremely dangerous, the residents have to organize their everyday life differently than the rest of the USA. Basically, this means that first, all doors and windows are closed and every blind is pulled down in order to avoid any warm air or rays of sunlight in the house. Then, in almost complete darkness, the daily routine begins for the children. They are all taught at home by their parents until they reach high school, since there is no school in Death Valley. From the age of 12, they then switch to online classes, although there are always problems here as the heat often causes the power and the internet to fail. Other activities, such as sports clubs or meeting up with friends in between are absolutely impossible for the children of Death Valley, as leaving the house could cause immediate danger to their life. Instead, residents spend their free time indoors during the day. The only person who goes out after 8 in the morning is the parent who works as a ranger on the national reservation. As a ranger, one is inevitably forced to spend the day outdoors, which is only made possible by highly modern sunshades with extra reflectors and numerous water reserves. Moreover, the rangers use medical equipment that constantly monitors whether the body has enough fluids in it and whether the pulse still beats at healthy intervals. The task of the rangers is then to accompany the numerous tourists safely through the valley, since many underestimate the temperatures, and it comes accordingly again and again to heat strokes and serious medical emergencies. Around lunchtime, the temperatures in Death Valley then reach proportions that are unimaginable for us. Due to the geographic location and the constant global warming caused by climate change, it is now almost 51 degrees in the shade daily. The soil of the valley heats up to 90 degrees, which is why any contact with it can lead to severe burns. For some, this hostile heat does not stop them from pursuing an already inhumane extreme sport, ultramarathoning. In ultramarathoning, the normal marathon distance of 42 kilometers is extended to more than 100 kilometers, and only the most extreme endurance athletes in the world take on this challenge. Once a year, just such an ultramarathon also takes place in Death Valley, and a few dozen extreme athletes attempt to jog 217 kilometers through Death Valley. Although only a few of them reach the finish line, this competition shows that even the most hostile areas are still not enough for some people. The ranger's normal everyday life has little to do with such extreme sports. As longtime residents of the hottest place on Earth, they know that any unnecessary exertion can quickly lead to health problems. Accordingly, they head home as quickly as possible after work and wait there until the sun slowly sets. Now, finally, something like a normal, everyday life with leisure activities begins. As temperatures now drop below 40 degrees, families go to nearby swimming pools or meet up with the neighborhood. While it's still hotter now than in most other regions of the world, it is still possible to be outdoors and spend time with others without much incident. By the way, there is also a great sense of community in Death Valley. The residents all know each other and support each other in many ways. There is also another spectacle after sunset. Because Death Valley is so remote, you can see one of the most incredible starry skies ever. To celebrate this, Death Valley even hosts the Dark Sky Festival every year. And there is something else absolutely unique in Death Valley, which one would not have thought possible there. In the middle of Death Valley is the Oasis of Death Valley, a stunning luxury resort where wealthy tourists like to stay and enjoy a relaxing vacation despite the heat. In this hotel complex, there are not only lush pools, cooled golf courses, and fine restaurants, both inside and outside. There are even so many air conditioners in operation that you could almost think you would be on vacation in a country like Spain or Italy. Although this resort is often the subject of great criticism, as it is extremely environmentally unfriendly and wasteful of resources to artificially cool such a large area in the hottest valley in the world, many visitors enjoy a cold drink at the bar after a trip to the over 50-degree valley. Overall, the Oasis of Death Valley shows the stark differences that exist in the hottest place on Earth. On the one hand, you can have a luxury vacation here, while the residents spend the whole day in the dark fighting against 50 degrees Celsius heat. Some drink up to 7 liters of water a day and are meticulous about staying in the shade, while others complete marathons of over 200 kilometers and push every limit of the human body. But what distinguishes the tourists from the residents is that they can leave the valley again after a few days or hours. For the residents, on the other hand, after leisure activities in the evening, another day comes to an end before they prepare to spend another 24 hours in the hottest place on Earth the next morning. And that's it for our video. Like this video if you enjoyed it, and we will see you next time, here at Wonderlane.